So remember that I have created this reference plane. The name is double skin. It's 3 feet away from the original curtain wall. And well, in massing and site, I have to do the in-place mass. I'm going to work on the 3D view, and I have to set the work plane at double skin. Well, here you see that we have model and reference. Reference lines are interesting, and we can do something with this, but not today. We're going to use the model line. When we click model line, then these two icons are activated, and we have the draw on work plane, and we have the draw on face. Okay, so we have to select draw on work plane because we are on this plane, on the reference, on the double skin reference plane. So we're going to do that. And now when we pick select, we can select that line. And you see that when we select that line, the line is on that reference plane. And when we select the lower part of the roof, now that line is in that plane. You see? Okay, so that's what should be. But now we have to adjust the size of the lines. Yeah, I think it's good. Probably, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to pick this line and I'm going to adjust this to this part of this curtain wall. And here, this face, the interior face of that curtain wall. The same thing here. I'm going to pick this line and I'm going to move it here to the internal place of the curtain wall. And this one, I'm going to move it there. Okay. Now, I have these two lines on the right reference plane. Now I have to pick this one, control, I pick the second one, and I create a solid form. What the hell? It's going on here. We're going to work with massing and site, in-place mass. We're going to set the work plane at the double skin. I'm going to use this option. I'm going to use model line, and I'm going to activate this draw on work plane. So if I do this and I pick lines, I pick the bottom line of this curtain wall. That's it. I pick the bottom line of this roof. So now we have these two lines. And now I'm going to connect this line and that line and this one and this one. If there is a gap here, I can trim. There you go. Okay, so you see that I have created this shape. It's in the right plane. It's in the double skin reference plane. And now I have to select I have to select the chain of wall lines. Okay, so I have to select everything and create a solid form. So if I create a solid form, I have something solid, but now I can select different things. I can select one line, I can select a surface, or I can select the whole volume. So I'm going to select this surface, okay? So only the surface here. Only that exterior surface. And now you see that I can divide the surface. So if I divide the surface by default, we have this. Okay, so we have 10 by 10. We have a grid, 10 by 10. If you remember, I divided the first curtain wall into 4 parts. So I never remember if U grid, we have U and V. Instead of X and Y, Revit works with U and V. And I don't remember if U is horizontal and V is vertical. I don't know. So I'm going to change this to 4. Okay, so that's the horizontal. So I have to change the U to 4. There you go. Okay. And I'm going to change the V grid number to 3. Or 2. Okay, so let's do this. I have changed the, or I have agreed that it's 4 by 2. You see that here by default, we have no pattern. We are going to work with something, the easiest thing is a rectangular pattern. So we select rectangle here. And when we select rectangle here, we can divide this into 5 elements or 3. So you see that we can divide this into different parts. I'm going to select 2. That seems the easiest thing we can divide. Okay. And you see that when we select the surface, we have this rectangle here. We have the pattern. We can change the pattern. So we have arrows. We have octagons. So if we divide this into 10 by 10, so we can be creative with this pattern, as you can see. I want to do something, the basic thing is to create a rectangle. So that's what we're going to do. And it's a 4 by 2, but it has to be a rectangular pattern, this one. Okay, if you do this, do you have all these families here? Okay, so those families are families that I have created and I have loaded to the file. So let's try the first family, family 1. Okay, so you see how the this family, it's like a traditional curtain wall with mullions, vertical and horizontal, and a glass. Let's try family 2. Okay, so family 2, it's something slightly different. And you can try different families that I have here. There is something wrong with this family because that thing should not work. Family 4, family 7. Okay, so you see that I have created different families here, and those families, yeah, sure. Those families have different shapes. So I finish the mass, and I have the double skin here. And then I don't need the mass. Can I hide it? Okay, if I hide the mass, I will hide this. Okay, so I'll fix that later. But you see how first I have to create the surface. I have to create the mass. Then I can divide the mass, and then I can create families, and I can make the elements, the solid elements that I created to adapt to those families. Okay, if I want to change it, I have to select the mass. I have to edit in place. I have to select only the surface. And now if I select the surface, I can change the family here. So now the question is, how do I create a family? Okay, I'm going to show you that. But so far, we can always, if we edit this mass, we can make it as thin as possible. And now it works well. Okay, so I have created the double skin facade, and I can be creative designing this double skin facade. I recommend you do the width of the family just like this. as thin as the width of the elements that I have created here. So now we have the mass and we don't have anything solid bothering me. Well, there's something here as well. There's a gap. We have to close this gap. So we have to extend this roof beyond the double skin, and we have to extend this gutter beyond the roof. So that works. And now it doesn't rain inside this air chamber. We don't want that. Okay. We're going to continue, and then I will show you how to create the family. Because now we have to, by the way, are you all here? We are not, okay. Now I have to connect both curtain walls. So if I go to level 15, you see that we have these two curtain walls. And the first thing we need is a connection between the first curtain wall and the second one. So I can use component model in place. I'm not going to design something special for that. I only need something connecting the internal curtain wall and the external curtain wall. So I'm going to go to architecture, component, model in place. I'm going to select railing. And I'm just going to create extrusion with a rectangle. So I'm going to select this. And I'm going to stop here. Well, I want this here. Okay, so I want the width of the mullion of the first curtain wall. And now I can copy as many times as mullions I have here. Okay. And now if I click finish, I can work with the thickness or the width of this element. So I can move it down and I can move it here. Okay, so you see that I have created a connection. I don't mind this connection. I think it can be something thinner like this. I'm just connecting the two curtain walls or the two sheets of this double skin curtain wall. Okay, so one connection will not be enough. So I'm going to connect this. So I'm going to copy all these connections. Copy. Remove the constraint. And I'm going to go up. And I'm going to connect it twice. Okay, so here and there. So there are two connections between the first and the second skin. So now we have already connected that. What was the example? Remember that the goal is to do something like that. Okay, so we have the first skin here. We have created the double skin there. There's a connection. Here we have all these frames. In this case, I have created only the horizontal structural elements connecting the first and the second. And here we have the catwalk. We will do the catwalk later. But now I will work on these shading devices. Okay, so if we look at the detail of the shading devices here, it's something that it's connected to the connection between the first line and the second line, the first skin and the second skin. So you see that there's a cylinder here that it's connecting this structure that I have just created. And then we have louvers going down and they are operable. Okay, so we can roll it up or roll it down, and probably I can change the tilt of those louvers so that I can control the amount of sun that I get into the building. Okay, so I'm going to do something like this without, okay, so I'm not going to go to the detail, but that level of detail would be enough, okay? So I'm going to copy this one. So I'm here. And yeah, so if I want to create those louvers, I want to connect something here, and then I will create all the louvers going down. Okay, so I'm going to use the component model in place. Every time that I have to do something special that it's not a Revit family, I use component model in place, and that works. First, I need to know where we are. So I'm working from grid 2 to grid 3. Okay, so in my drawing, I'm working with this part of the building. It's between 2 and 3. So if I'm on this 3D view, I have to go to architecture, component, model in place. Again, when I don't, if it's something that I don't know what it is, I use railings. You can use any other category, but railings, yeah, I think it works. So I'm going to create railings, and now I have to set the work plane either grid 2 or 3. So I'm going to create this on grid 3. And now let's copy this shape. So we have a cylinder, and then this cylinder is connecting all these louvers. So probably we have a wire. We don't see that, but there will be something connecting all these. So first, I'm going to, if I zoom in, okay. So apparently there's a cylinder, then there is something like this, and then we have louvers like that. Okay, so I'm going to create this shape here. Okay, so extrusion. I think I set the work plane to grid 3. Yep. And now the first thing, I have a circle. So I'm going to create a circle here, like 2 inches. Okay. And now I'm going to go from the midpoint here, and I'm going to create an arc like this. Okay. Now I want a mirror. I select this arc. I mirror. So I have created that shape, something like that. And now I have to give it a thickness. I'm going to use offset. The thickness is 1/4. 1/4 can work, 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to apply this thickness to everything, including this and that. Okay. So now I have to create like a closed shape. I'm going to create another arc to close this. Okay, so I want a round shape here. Looks nicer. And now I have to trim, but first I have to split. So here we have the split element, and I can split, oh, I don't need the split element because I can trim this one and that one. I can get rid of this central line, and I can split the circles. Now I can split this circle here, and I can trim this and this and this and that. Okay, so now I have something that it's a cylinder. This cylinder is connected to these elements, and then this is the first connection, or from this element, all the louvers will be hanging. So now I'm going to copy all these. I'm going to copy this like 3 inches down. And I have to close this shape. Maybe if I use trim, it will work. Nope. It doesn't work. Okay, so I'm going to use the offset like this and like that. It has to be a closed shape, so that's important. And now I can keep copying this, copy, and I copy this as many times as I need to. Copy more. And well, I think it's good enough. So I'm going to finish, see what happens. Cannot have overlapping lines. So where do I have the overlapping lines? So I did something wrong on this one. I'm going to copy only that part, 3 inches down. And now I'm going to create an arc from this point to that point, like this. So will it work now? Yeah, now it works. So I'm going to keep copying this. If I click finish and it works, that's great. So now I have to select the family, and on level 30, I have to go from grid 2 to grid 3. I finish the model, and there you go. It's too much, so I'm going to move it here. And there. Nice. Are we here yet? Okay. So we are adding details to this. Okay, so it's not just a curtain wall. We don't use the ready curtain wall option, curtain wall. No, we are first designing a curtain wall with the right partitions. Then we are designing a double skin, and there should be a relationship between the first and the second skins, at least with the vertical mullions, so that I can easily connect them. And then I'm using these connections to hold the louvers or the blinds, so that if I need to roll this down, so this could be a blind, so I can roll this down and I can protect the whole facade. or it can be something like that. So why would I need this? Because if I now activate the sun path, if I go to sun path on, use the specified location, well, perfect. I'm doing this on the north facade. Okay, so that would be great if I did this on the southern facade. But that's interesting because now I can explain you something different. Okay, so imagine that we did something wrong and we are working on the wrong orientation of our building. This has to be the south facade, because in the south facade, we need the double skin, we need the louvers. It doesn't make sense doing this in the north facade. So how can I change the orientation of this building? I can select everything, rotate everything, but that will give us a lot of problems. So I'm going to change the north of the drawing. Okay, so we should do this at the beginning of the design process. But imagine that we are here. We found out that we have made a mistake when it comes to the orientation of the building. And I want this to be the south facade and not the north. Okay, so we're going to do it. First, okay, on one of the levels, I have the orientation. Where is it? Here. It's project north. I'm going to change to true north. Okay. So if I change this to true north, in view or in manage, okay. So in manage, I have position and I can rotate true north. So I want to rotate this 180 degrees. So I do this. Okay. And now if I go to the 3D view, all the curtain walls that I'm doing are in the southern facade. Okay. So that's useful, especially when we're working with orientations that are not aligned with this vertical axis, northwest. Okay, but remember that if we have made a mistake with the orientation of the building, because we started drawing without taking into account the north of the building, we can always work with the true north, and then we can rotate the true north. And now this is the south facade, it's not the north. Why do I want this to be the south facade? Because all these things that we are doing here, it makes sense if we are working in the south elevation. If we cast shadows, okay, so we can understand why we are creating all these louvers, because we are in the south elevation. If this is February 24th, 11 a.m. I'm going to move it to 8 a.m. No, to 1 p.m. Okay, so on 1 p.m., if we are inside the building, if we are on level 0, and we take a screenshot of the part of the facade that we have created now, and we activate the shade here, well, we can see the effect of the louvers that we have created here. Okay, so it will provide some shade to the space. So that's why we are doing this kind of things here on the southern facade. Okay, so don't work with shadows because it will be confusing. Now we are designing, so to take the screenshots and all that stuff, you can use shadows. But if we are just working on the file, don't show the sun path and don't show the shadows, and I think it will be easier. Okay, I told you that I'm going to show you how to create your own families. Remember that we have started with this. We have created a mass. We can edit the mass. If we select the surface, we have created a rectangular pattern. And if I create a family with that rectangular pattern, I can change the shape of my curtain wall. Okay. So I'm going to show you something very simple, and then we can we can try something more complicated. And I'm going to show you the family to create the catwalk. Okay, so what the hell is this catwalk that we have in this kind of, yeah, so this is it. So the catwalk is just a perforated steel plate. If we look at the floor plan of this, it's a rectangle, and there will be elements like this and like that. It's like a grid. This is very thin. Okay, so each rectangle, it has a very thin steel plate here. This is air. If we want something very light, we just want to walk on that catwalk. But as you can see, the air can go through this one. Okay, so we only have these elements here. Okay, so we're going to try to build something like that. So this is going to be a rectangular pattern with vertical elements and horizontal elements. So let's do it with another in-place mass, and then we will create the family. Okay, so we are on this level. So we are on level 15. Okay, so that catwalk, it's something that goes from this connection to that connection. So I'm going to go to maximum site, in place mass. Now I'm going to set the work plane on level 15. So by default, it's level 15. Good. And the shape of this is just a rectangle. So I want a rectangle, let's say from here to there. Okay, so I'm going to use the midline. And it's a rectangle that it's not touching the first and the second skin. So there's a gap here. Okay, so I create this rectangle. And now I can create a solid form. So if I create a solid form on the 3D view, yet I will have something that it's too thick. I want something way thinner. So I'm going to move it down, and that's the thickness. Okay, I don't know, 1 inch or 2 inches or something like that. Okay, so now I have to select the surface, and I'm going to divide the surface. So is this division good enough? Let's go to level 15. Okay. I can probably, if I have 15 by 12, well, I don't know, something like that. Okay, so it's something So all these elements will be solid, the lines, and then there will be a void between these solid elements. So I can finish the mass. And I've got something like this. Okay, I shouldn't have finished. So I'm going to edit in place. I have to select the surface again, and I have to create a pattern because it doesn't have any pattern. So I can create, and again, a rectangular pattern. You might say, okay, but it's a rectangle. Yeah, but if I want to insert a family, I want to insert a family on the pattern. So if I'm creating rectangles, I need to create a rectangular pattern here. Now I could insert the families, but what happens with that family? That the elements that we have in this family, they are too thick. So this is not what we want. We have to create a family with thinner elements. Okay, so I want to finish the mass. So that's it. I have the mass, but I have not inserted the family because the family that I have, they are not the right ones. So I want to create my own family. Okay, let's try. This is probably the most difficult thing that we can do with Revit. Okay, creating your own family to apply to the mass that you have already created. So let's see if it works. We have to go to File, Open Families. And this is not cancel, File, New Family. Okay, so it's not open, it's new. Okay, so you have to go to File, not Open Family. You have to go to New, and now New Family, because we're going to create a new one. And to create a new family, we are going to select this one, curtain panel pattern based. There are a lot of things we can do. We can create a new column. We can create a new curtain wall, but we're going to create a curtain panel pattern based. So if we click here, we have this element. So open this. Okay, so now we are in a different universe. We're not in Revit. We're in the universe of the Revit families. And at some point, we have to connect these two universes. So what do we have here? The pattern, if we select this, you see that by default, we are in rectangle, but there is a connection between the patterns that we have in Revit and the patterns that we have in the family. So if we are working with triangles, we can use a triangle pattern, but we are working with rectangles now. Okay, so what do we want here? What is this family? The good thing of these families is that if we have a mass with this pattern, whatever we do in the family will be adapted to the pattern that we have created here. So what do we get? We want to create something like this. Okay. So it's the element that is very thin, the thickness of these solid elements. It can be 1/4 of an inch. So the thickness of these plates is 1/4 of an inch, and the thickness of that plate will be 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so and the width, let's say, let's say 2 inches, maybe 1/2. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. We have to create just a rectangle that is 1/4 and 1/2. Something very simple. But it has to be here. So you see that those are lines that are active. So whatever we do on those lines, we can create a solid along these lines. Okay, so let's do it. So we have to draw, and we're going to, let's start with lines. Or first, we can set the work plane, and I'm going to set the work plane here. Okay, so you see that it's very tiny, and I can make it bigger because if I zoom in, this doesn't change. But I want to select this plane. You see that when I hover the mouse, I can activate the horizontal or one of the vertical planes. Okay, so I want to select one of the vertical planes, this one. And now on this line, I want to create the rectangle. So it was 1/2 inch and 1/4 of an inch. Okay. So you see that I have created this rectangle. And if I select everything now, I want to select the rectangle, and I want to select these reference lines, these green lines. So I select everything at once. I create a solid form again, and I hope it works. Yeah, it works. So it has created a continuous rectangle like this. Okay, something very basic. It's just a rectangle, and then I create a form, and because the rectangle is connected to these reference lines, Revit understands that what I want to do is to create extrusion along all these lines. And now I have to save, I'm going to save this family. Let's call it catwalk. Save. And I'm going to load it into the project. So load into the project. Okay. So now on the 3D view, I have the mask that I have created. So I select the mask. I edit in place. I have to select the surface. And now if I display this, or if I click here in rectangle, we have the catwalk family here. So click this one, and now you have a solid element. Wow. Incredible. Isn't it amazing? Now you can copy this one. Okay, so look at the level of detail that we have in this Revit file. We have created the first skin, then the double skin, then we have the connections, then we have created louvers for shading this. And now, how can we do this? How can we do an element that is very simple? Okay, so it's just a grid with solid elements and voids, something very thin. But the only way I have to create that kind of stuff is using the family that I have created there.